Hello, glorious scrappers, and welcome to Sketch Club. I'm so glad you're here. Happy New Year, everybody. I want to start by talking about the sketchbook that we'll be using for this year. Emily and I will be taking turns presenting you with the odd and even pages of the books. And we're going to be using 101 scrapbooking ideas and sketches. This is the newest book that just came out. And in case you're not familiar with using a sketch, make sure you take some time to look at page 4 in the book, which tells you how to read the sketch so that you understand what each one of the different shades of color means and what the different shapes mean, because that will be consistent throughout the year. In each one of my videos, I'm going to provide you with a pro tip and a tool tip. Those of you who are regulars with me know that I love tools. The tools are what you invest the large amounts of money in, so that's really where you get the most bang for your buck. So using it as often as possible seems like the right thing to do, right? All right, we're gonna start with sketch 1. And just so you know, as we go throughout the year, we'll be increasing in the number of photos that we have. It starts with 2 to 3 photos on a page. And it does go up. So by the time you get to the end, you're going to be at 6+ photos on a page. So if you're working independently and you want to do some sketches before we actually make the video to show you how we interpreted them, then feel free to flip ahead. If you have a lot of photos, go more towards the end of the book. And you may have noticed when I was flipping through here that there are some 12 by 12 fast formulas in the back that you can use to quickly put together an album, as well as 6 3/4 by 10 inch, which is the happy album size, and then some 8 by 8 fast album formulas as well. So you have the option of more than just 12 by 12, especially if you're making a gift album. All right, let's get started on sketch 1. This is the sketch. This is what it looks like here, and the way Creative Memories has interpreted it is using the Devotion collection. This wedding collection is absolutely beautiful. I have made quite a few pages and will be using quite a lot of it this year as I scrapbook my son's wedding from last August. But honestly, this sketch didn't really inspire me, so I had to try it first in another paper pack. So what I did was I used the Nordic Winter, which is the newest one of the winter/holiday collections. And I really do like the way this turned out. What I did here is I did use one of the matte packs, just like they did on the sketch, on the suggested sketch. I used one of the mattes that already had my title on it. And you can fill this up more with embellishment if you want to. But I did cut this. So here's one of my things that I like to do myself. The cards that come in your paper pack, this is what the whole sheet would look like in the front. I cut these down to the size of the photos that I want to use because I don't always have the photos printed yet when I make the pages. I don't scrapbook in order, so I don't just print a lot of pictures and have them stacked up and waiting a lot of times. I definitely do make my pages without photos and ahead of time. And yes, it can be done. And yes, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get it, I really like it. I do it that way a lot. So using the back side of that card, I cut the photo sizes that I knew I would be needing so I could create the layout with the spacing that I wanted. And as with any sketch, you can interpret it absolutely the way you want to. I used one of the 12-inch sticker strips, and then some of the paper that I trimmed off, it's the other side of this sheet that I trimmed off for the center of the page. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And I did use some pop dots, some foam adhesive for the dimension on here. If you are a person who likes to put a lot of pages in your album, you might not want to use as many dimensional or thick by nature embellishments, because that will definitely decrease the number of pages you can put in your album. All right, I'm going to set that aside for a minute. And I decided for another interpretation of the sketch, I wanted to make a New Year's page. So I went back to this Cheers pack, which is one of my favorites. It's from 2019. It's more like a kit page than an actual paper pack. It comes with a sheet of white cardstock, and then it comes with a couple of sheets of double-sided paper. And this side, as you can see, you can cut it apart and use the elements for a lot of different things. And I want to do a New Year's page. I do have a few pictures. One thing though about the stickers that come along with this pack, they're horizontal instead of vertical. Now, could I use them vertically? Absolutely. There's no reason why not. But I'm going to lean into using them the way they come off the page here. So I'm going to turn the sketch 90 degrees. The sketch is really supposed to be a form of inspiration, right? So this is the way that they initially created the sketch. I'm going to turn it this way and use this as my design layout. All right, so here comes my tool tip. Some of you may already know this trick. I apologize to Eileen Markman, who is now a professional page cutter, so she'll be bored by this part. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create just a 1-inch frame of the paper because I'll be using it around, let me get the inspiration layout back out. I'll be using it for my outside edge, but most of it will be covered. So to keep the weight down on the page, that way we're just going to use the outside frame. And it also leaves paper left over to make mats if you want to do that. So here's my tool tip. The housing for your blade on your trimmer has this line in the center. This represents where the blade actually cuts. But it's exactly 1 inch to either side of the housing. So if you want to create a 1-inch frame, it's very fast and easy. You don't need clips. You don't need to worry about seeing lines on your trimmer. You're just going to line your paper up at the 1-inch line on the trimmer table itself. And then you're just going to line your blade housing, your blade carriage, up with the edge of your paper. Now, obviously, this only works if you're creating a 1-inch frame. So if you're going to create a different width of frame, you'll need to do a little bit of math with that one. But I'm going to go ahead and create my frame. Just like this. And there you go. That's how quick and easy it is to make a 1-inch frame. Perfect cut. This is perfectly square. You could use this in the center, especially if it's pattern paper. You might want to save that for the center of another layout, or you may want to use one side or the other for mats on the layout you're making. Since mine is just white cardstock, I'm not gonna worry I'll probably use it for mats at some point, but I don't have any immediate designs to do that. All right, let's take a look at our sketch again. And you can see that the paper that's layered on top of this frame is 11.5 by 11.5. So what I did to make my design decision is I took the other sheet of this paper and I cut it into the segments. And then I'm going to use a little bit of this Cheers print. I don't know how well you can see that. My lighting today isn't great. It's snowing outside. Yay! After 2 years, we're finally getting snow. But for this, I'm going to use the gray and silver splatter. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut it to 11, oops, that's the wrong, to 11.5 by lining it up at the 1/2 inch mark and just cutting a 1/2 inch strip off each side. Now, if you have a paper with a oops, I'm going to do one again. Got to pay attention. If you have a paper with a print design on it that has words or some kind of pattern in the background that has a distinct center, then instead of cutting a 1/2 off of each side, I would recommend cutting a 1/4 inch off these sides and 1/4 inch off these sides, because what that's going to do is make sure that the design on this paper stays centered. All right, here comes my pro tip for the day. When you have your paper frame and you want to attach your layer of paper to the top, don't put your adhesive on this. Put your adhesive on your frame. And the reason for that is that if you put it on the top of the paper, depending on how close to the edge your pattern paper is, it may actually, the part with the adhesive may come into the opening, which means that you're gonna have to do something to put another piece of paper on the back or something like that, so it doesn't stick to everything in your bag until it gets placed in its final home in your album. All right, and then it's a matter of lining it up. Now, I'm a big one for eyeball. I wiggle it around till I'm happy with it. But if you have the Creative Memories mats, let's scoot this over a little bit, you can actually line it up with the grid on your mat and then use the markings on the mat to come in 1/4 inch on every side, and that way you know you'll have it centered. So it depends on how comfortable you feel doing that. All right, let's take a look at our sketch again. And remember, we're doing it in this orientation. So what I did, as I said, I cut out some of the elements, and then I cut out a couple pieces of cardstock that represent my photograph. So this one's gonna go up here. And I'm actually going to do 2 3x4 elements instead of doing the 4x6 photo, because I think it will look nice with the smaller elements. That's what I decided to do. Now, one thing, because the elements on the cutout page, let me pull that back out. These are not quite 3x4. And so in order to make sure that I can make it the same size as my photo, I did use another piece of the backing from this card, and I did cut a 3x4, and then I trimmed this just a little so it would sit nicely in the middle. So let me go ahead and attach those elements together so that that's ready to go. Okay. So they'll go something like this. And then for my title, I'm going to use one of the pre-printed cards that was on that cut apart page. So I'll do something like this. I think this spacing looks pretty good. Okay, and then my final element here is actually, what they've done with it is they've intended to use one of the journal cards from the mat pack. But what I did is I took the back side of one of those elements and I decided to use it this way. Since it has lines on it, there's no mat pack that matches this, so I'm just going to create my own journaling block this way. And then my strips will be going down the center. So let me just see. I'm actually pretty happy with the spacing of that. It's fairly centered. Maybe I'll scooch it just a bit. Okay. And then let's get these attached. I'm not going to really press that down yet because I want to make sure I have my segment that I'm paper piecing onto here. And I did look at this. I want to make sure that when I cut this at 2 inches, again, I don't know how well you can see the print, the foiling on here, but at the bottom, there's a nice clean line underneath cheers. And here it cuts through part of the word. So I'm going to put this on the top because there's a high likelihood that there's going to be a border strip one of these that goes right through it. So that way I'll make sure the part that you can actually see on the page is going to have the best possible view of the, oh, I did already put adhesive on that. Look at me. All right. So this mimics the 4x6 because I have the 4x4 square of lines and then the other 2 inches to make the 4x6 segment. And the reason I did that is because I really don't need journaling lines down here since a lot of that's going to be covered with my border element. So I wanted to be sure that I got another look at another type of the paper that matches this set. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere the other paper elements on my page here. And make sure I have my leading the way I want it. Leading is actually a printer's term for the space that comes in between all of your elements. That's, think of it like a window pane. The leading is what holds the stained glass in place. So it becomes the border that you don't really look at, but that is very important for maintaining the sense of order and evenness on your page. All right, so I have my paper elements laid down there, and I'm just going to take some repositionable adhesive and a blot of adhesive in the center, just to hold that in place as a placeholder until I actually get the printed photos back. And the reason that I just put a blob of adhesive in the center is because sometimes the repositionable adhesive will lift a little bit of color from your pattern paper. So this way, if I don't put my photos in quite exactly the same position as the paper, I won't have any markings from that. And also, it's very easy to just lift up the edge. I say that and then I make it not look easy. Just lift up the edge and take that off when you're ready. But it's still, you really kind of need it to maintain where your other page elements are going to go so that you don't have a problem filling that space in. All right, what I am doing now is I'm going to go ahead and start placing my border strips. And for this, I am going to use the markings on the mat to make sure that I get this, because this has a pointy edge. So I want it to be as cleanly spaced as possible. Okay. This is a fun sticker for New Year's Eve because it has the countdown on it. And then, actually, I think I'm going to use the hearts for this because there's more contrast for them. So they're going to go, oops, on either side of the border here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and use the markings on the mat to help me position that so that it's completely not even. See how that works? All right, let's lay the layout on the mat again here. There we go. Yes, that looks much better. Okay, so see how that brings a little bit of the darker contrast in? This is a completely monochromatic layout. It doesn't have any color, let alone only one color. So contrast becomes your best form of making sure that you have interest in your layout. So that gives you a little bit of the contrast at the bottom. And now comes the fun part. Now you get to embellish, right? So as you can see on the sketch, when it was this direction, this was on the bottom left. I'm actually kind of debating whether or not I want to continue that to have my embellishments on the bottom left. And then I'll put something small over here just to balance it out a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and use some of the great embellishments from this kit to add some interest here. And go ahead and layer them in place. And then there's some great word stickers down here, which are going to help provide some of my journaling in an additional way. So I'm just going to start lining them up. There we go. And I think I'll use this awesome martini sticker. And I'll put that over on this side. Maybe I'll put it up a little so it's a little jaunty. There we go. All right, so this isn't going to conflict with your photos or compete with your photos at all because it is all such monochromatic embellishments. I'm still toying with the idea of whether I already sent these pictures to print, but I'm toying with the idea of actually resending them in black and white. So this really truly is a very monochromatic page. It'll end up being the first page for 2024. So that might be kind of fun because it definitely makes a statement. I can't really think of anything else that I want to add right now. So I'd love to hear your comments and your questions. Please feel free to leave them in the chat. And I'd love to see your version of the sketch. If you want to give this a try, we're going to use the same format for the hashtag throughout the year. And it's always going to be hashtag sketch club and then the number of the sketch and then 2024. And I will also make sure that I reference what page of the book the sketch itself is actually in because they don't necessarily line up. For example, this is the first sketch, but it's on page 5. So that way it'll be easy for you to find in the book because sometimes the sketch might deviate enough since it's just a form of inspiration that it might be hard to identify from the sketch itself. All right, well, Happy New Year again. I hope you all are enjoying the beginning of your long winter's nap, and then it means some scrappy time for all of you. And I can't wait to see what you make.